This is the Going to the Sun Road in Glacier National Park, Montana. The design and creation of this road in the 20s and 30s is an early example of one of the most important and enduring partnerships in our national parks. The key to the creation of this landmark was an early collaboration between two government agencies: the Bureau of Public Roads, now the Federal Highway Administration, or FHWA, and the National Park Service.
The Going to the Sun Road stretches over 50 miles through some of the most spectacular mountain scenery in North America. As you make your way over this historic road, perched on the side of a steep mountain, you'll be treated to an incredible high country driving experience. You'll see breathtaking views of glacier-carved peaks, emerald blue alpine lakes, lush forests, and wildlife that often can be seen from the road itself.
Glacier National Park and Western Federal Lands Highway Division realized in the 70s that the road was beginning to deteriorate through lack of maintenance and quite frankly, Mother Nature. The road continues to deteriorate. We undertook collaboratively a number of studies of the walls, of drainage, of many features of the road, and came to the conclusion during the 80s that an extensive rehabilitation project was necessary in order to preserve this national treasure. This enormous project, one of the largest ever undertaken by the Federal Highway Administration's Federal Lands Highway Divisions, would not be possible without the partnership of the Federal Highway Administration, the National Park Service, and all of our partners. The long-standing partnership of the National Park Service and the Federal Highway Administration has lasted over 70 years.
Throughout its history, the Sun Road, as it is often called, has been one of the most visited features in the park. Today, more than 475,000 vehicles travel the road during the park's peak visitor season from June to October, or about 3,500 vehicles per day.
The Sun Road rehabilitation is one of the largest restoration projects in National Park Service history. The scope and magnitude of this undertaking is clearly unprecedented and daunting. This project would not be possible without the dedication and professionalism of the staff at both Glacier National Park and Western Federal Lands Highway Division. Join me as we show you how two federal government agencies are combining forces to preserve this phenomenal mountain byway. But before we do that, let's take a step back in time to learn where and when this extraordinary partnership began and how the original construction of the Sun Road was accomplished in the 1920s and 30s.
The first tourists to visit what is now Glacier National Park came by train beginning in the 1890s. A typical trip in those early years involved getting off the train at the Great Northern Railway's Belton Station in what is now West Glacier. Then taking a 3-mile stagecoach ride to the shores of Lake McDonald, and then traveling by boat to the Lewis Glacier Hotel, now Lake McDonald Lodge. But the proliferation of the automobile shortly after the turn of the 20th century drastically changed the way visitors traveled to and within the park. By the time Congress established Glacier as a national park in 1910, many park visitors were arriving by private automobile by way of a primitive system of old wagon trails and dirt roads. Demand increased for a more developed park road system that would allow visitors to enjoy the spectacular scenery without damaging the environment. The National Park Service sought help from Federal Lands Highway Division's predecessor, the Bureau of Public Roads, in leading a thorough review and survey of the proposed alternatives. The National Park Service eventually narrowed the selection to two alternatives. The first, a route similar to today's alignment, except that it included a steep climb over Logan Pass by way of 15 switchbacks and hairpin turns, and a second alternative carved directly into the garden wall, the 3-mile section of near vertical cliffs just below the summit of Logan Pass. The Garden Wall route, as the alternative was originally called, was eventually chosen because it provided flatter grades, fewer impacts to the environment, better panoramic views, more sun exposure for faster spring snowmelt, and only one switchback, the loop. Construction on the more difficult Alpine section began in 1925 and continued intensively for 7 more years. In 1932, after more than 3 decades of planning and construction and more than $2 million in construction costs, the first automobile drove over the entire 50 miles of the Trans Mountain Highway, as the road was originally named. Glacier officially opened the road in a dedication ceremony on July 15, 1933, and renamed the road after the nearby Going to the Sun mountain. Through the better part of 7 decades, the Sun Road served millions of park visitors while receiving only minimal maintenance and repairs. This lack of maintenance, as well as heavy traffic and the harsh mountain weather, had all taken their toll on the highway. Without aggressive action, the historic structures for which the Sun Road is so admired would continue to deteriorate and be lost forever. By the early 1990s, many of the road's 130 retaining walls were found to have serious structural problems. That's when the National Park Service and the Federal Highway Administration swung into action on plans to rehabilitate the entire Sun Road. All of this extensive and careful planning was done to ensure a smooth start to the rehabilitation project of a lifetime.
My role in this project as the senior project manager is really integrated with my kind of park role as the Chief of Facilities Management. And what my job is in this project is to choreograph all the different parts and pieces along with Western Federal Highways and Keith Wong, and in short, making sure that it all happens in the time frame we say that it's going to happen. You know, I've worked at this park for 10 years, and for most of that 10 years, we've been planning work on this Going to the Sun Road. Through the General Management Plan, through the Citizens Advisory Committee, through the Environmental Impact Statement on this road, and through all of those planning efforts, Western Federal has been our partner.